Welcome to Breaking the Bubble, staying creative and connected. This event is presented by Adobe.
If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
Hi. I see everyone's logging on right now. Hi, everyone. I am Nellie Bowles. I'm a technology and culture reporter for the New York Times, and welcome to Breaking the Bubble, staying creative and connected. We are so glad to have you here with us in this year 10 of lockdown. I'm going to be speaking to you today with 4 extraordinary creative minds about how they're helping the rest of us stay inspired, creative, and connected, even when we're stuck as we are in these bubbles. I want to note, first of all, that the event is being recorded, and also that later on we'll share some questions that some people have submitted in advance for our panel. But first, I am so excited to welcome our first 2 guests, Samin Nosrat and Hirway. Their podcast, Home Cooking, which they began in early quarantine days back in March, has just started releasing a new batch of episodes. Rishi and Samin, hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, you guys. So I imagine that a lot of people who have logged in know who you guys are and what you are doing. But for those who don't, maybe tell me, first of all, where you are zooming in from, and then what home cooking is. Just a cliff notes for the newbies.
I'm Samin. I'm a cook and a writer. I actually have a column in the New York Times Magazine, and I contribute from time to time to the food section on Wednesdays. And I live in Oakland, California, and Rishi is my good friend.
I'm Hrishikesh Hirway. I am a musician, and I've made a couple of podcasts before we started home cooking. Song Exploder is one I've been doing since 2014, and The West Wing Weekly is another show that I did that ended earlier this year.
And was it 2 Thanksgivings ago, Rishi? Was it 2 years ago? Yeah. So 2 Thanksgivings ago, actually it was wildfire season, and I had escaped Oakland to go to LA, which had slightly better air. And I was,
I love that wildfire season is now just like a thing.
That time
of year.
And I was at Rick's house a couple days before Thanksgiving, and he had this like funny combination of ingredients that I had never seen on his counter. He had like can of mango puree, a thing of Cool Whip, cream cheese, and like a graham cracker crust. And I was like, what is this interesting combination of ingredients? And he was like, oh, I'm making mango pie. It's my family tradition for Thanksgiving. I'm practicing it because it's like what my mom always made, and I'm not really good at it. So it was Tuesday. You were making one on Tuesday as like a practice run.
By the way, I never said I'm not good at it. Samin's just adding that in. She remembers it. That's the Samin filter.
I'm a pro.
In her, if you could see the mental image of her memory of this, like I'm wearing, the oven mitt on my head. I've got a baking pan. I'm like, is this a fork?
Yeah.
I had made mango pie before.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm remembering.
Come on, like.
Okay, so then what happened?
But I was practicing because even though I've made it before, I had not perfected it. And my mom is a really incredible cook, and the mango pie is something that she introduced to our Thanksgivings. I had thought that she had maybe invented it. It turned out maybe it was something that had been passed around by Indian aunties. But I was trying to get, this image that I had in my head of the platonic ideal of this mango pie brought to life, and I couldn't do it. And I ended up texting Samin later saying, okay, that thing that you saw me trying to make, I'm having some trouble with it. The texture isn't right. There are these little flecks of either cream cheese or Cool Whip. I'm not really sure.
You were like, there's these white lumps in there. You're like, there's white lumps.
Well, they're like these, it's just supposed to be this beautiful, smooth mixture. And there were these little going to call them white flecks because that's, but.
And I said, what are the white lumps? Are they cream cheese or Cool Whip? And you said, I don't know. And I said, taste it, let it dissolve on your tongue. And so you did, and you said, it's cream cheese. And I said, oh, probably you didn't, like, the cream cheese was probably different temperature than everything else. So you probably have to, like, make everything the same temperature. And you kind of doubted me. And you're like, well, I'm going to call my sister and check
I
with
thought
her.
it was like, oh, I don't have a real blender. Do I have to heat the, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
it's just as simple as bringing stuff to room temperature.
Yeah. So then you called your sister. She was like, the temperature is off. Like, she totally corroborated my story. And then you were, and then the Rishi, this was fully like Rishi Mind 101. This is my first experience of this. Like 10 seconds later, I got a full like spreadsheet proposal of our future podcast called Chef Detective. With an 8-episode breakdown, including a budget for a producer. And like how every episode would be us solving a cooking mystery.
We need to do a podcast. Okay, so then how did that lead to home cooking?
So for 2 years, we've been talking about this, and we've both been busy on doing different things. So when the quarantine started, Rishi was like, this is our chance. We got to do it. And I had always been like, well, Chef Detective, it's going to take so much time and money, and I don't have time or money. And you don't have time or money. And so he was like, let's just do something simple and engage people and make it about home cooking and make it simple and bring joy to people. So it was just a way for us, honestly, to spend time together.
Yeah. The Chef Detective idea had been sort of like half a joke, daydream, half real idea for a future project. And I think those halves really split evenly between, it was half a joke for Samin and half a real thing for me. I was like, we will do this someday. And so every now and then we'd talk about it, and she'd talk about it in a joking way, and I'd talk about it in an eventually way. And then when the pandemic hit, Samin had posted something in her Instagram stories about she had something that was sort of along the lines of like, I have some ideas for you about what to do with your beans or something like that. And I saw that and I said, this is what Chef Detective, could morph into, something that's directly applicable to the situation and the thing that people actually need right now, which is some help. And, the circumstances were going to be changing so much for people. And all of a sudden restaurants were closing and everybody was going to have to be cooking so much more and having to deal with their kitchen in a whole new way.
We've all become home cooks now. Like,
exactly.
I don't think I'd ever opened my fridge before. And now it's like, I'm buying real food. I'm buying greens that don't rot. Like, I eat them. I'm home with them. My milk
Nellie.
Sour. Like, I finish my milk and then I'm like, I need more. Like, that's crazy. I've never had that before. The thing that I'm finding I get stuck with is like, I'm just making the same thing over and over and over. And then also, like, it's really hard to inspire myself to cook anything when I'm cooking for just myself or just my partner over and over, rather than like, I used to have something to look forward to, like a party or people to impress. How do you stay, this is the theme of the whole thing. Like, how do you stay inspired when we're stuck as we are in these kind of little boxes all day and night?
I think part of it is acknowledging the reality is like, we are not in a super inspiring reality right now. So I also, I live by myself. I also will make a pot of rice and eat that thing. Like, I made rice and beans this week twice in a row, and I had that like 22 meals in a row. So, so like, it happens to the best of us, and also like I derive inspiration from wherever I can find it from, whether like I'm lucky enough to have a garden. So if like something really nice comes from the garden, or, in Oakland, like we still have like access to farmers markets, or if for a lot of months I was getting a farm box. And so sort of just like whatever would come or whatever I felt I needed to use up, that was a thing. Or sometimes right now I'm spending a lot of time, realistically, on Instagram or seeing what other people are cooking. And right now a lot of cookbooks are coming out. And so just seeing what other people are cooking is a big source of inspiration. Also my cravings, or like remembering in childhood, or remembering like, oh, this time last year, like, oh, I really loved that like butternut squash salad. but it's not a deeply inspiring time to be, which I guess maybe is not the best thing for me to say at a creativity and inspiration talk, but like,
Like it,
but,
things aren't good. Not good.
But yeah, I think to acknowledge that is important, you know, and it's okay if you're in a rut, I think is a big part of it. This is not like some performance we're in, it's reality, and sort of just trying to make things taste good and have a little bit of joy every day, and is kind of how I do it. And I feel lucky, like, you know, we get to do this podcast, we get to hear from people and interact with people.
You get inspired by like incoming. How do you get yourself out of, and I sort of want to circle back to how you find inspiration to cook for yourself, but also like, how do you get yourself out of a creative rut? Like, I'm really curious about that right now, because I'm finding it's hard to jostle my mind into creativity. I'm starting that, what's the artist book that I just showed you yesterday?
The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, yeah.
Doing on my third day of morning pages. Like, I'm trying all these like things that I used to make fun that my mom did, and now I'm trying it. What do you have, like things that you're doing, new routines, like new tips?
What are you doing, Rishi?
You know, writer's block is something that comes up a lot in Song Exploder, my other show, because usually those stories start with how a song first came about. And for a lot of the artists that are there, they're dealing with this same kind of thing of, how do I break out of a rut? How do I do things differently from how I've always done it in order to have some kind of new experience or some kind of new outcome? And I remember Colin Malloy from the Decemberists talking about, he used it the phrases in breaths and out breaths, that in order to break out of things, he just needed to stop trying to put stuff out for a little bit and try and just take something in. And the way he did this, and of course this doesn't directly apply to cooking, but I think there's an easy leap to it. He decided to like learn a song by somebody else, a song that he loved that he did not know how to play, and that ended up, the chords from that song ended up inspiring the song that he ended up writing. And I think that's part of what we try and do on our podcast, is you might not make the very dish that Samin is talking about, or you might not have the exact ingredient that a listener is calling about in their question, but by taking in some information, it might spark something where you're not just relying on your own brain and the sort of the paths that the synapses in your brain have already created. It's just a chance to take something else in. We talked about maybe watching a movie that has food in it and seeing if there's something that sparks your imagination,
or music, or, you know, or poetry, or whatever. And, you know, for me, like, food is what everyone knows me as a cook and like a person around food, and I write about food. But I would say at this point in my life, like, food is probably where I derive the least inspiration. Like, my relationship to the natural world, my relationship to the written word, my relationship, I would say certainly to being outdoors is a big one. To like being with friends and being relationships with people, like those are the things that inspire me. And certainly like a lot of that has been interrupted in this time. And so I've been in a big rut in a lot of ways. And I recently realized like, oh, I'm really down. I've been in a rut. And also it's been a really rough time emotionally. There's been so much upheaval for a lot of us for all sorts of different reasons. And I just was like, oh yeah, in not as beautiful a way, I was like, it's time for an in-breath. For me, I ordered a bunch of books of poetry. I was like, oh, I have to stop putting pressure on myself to like,
give us some names of poets.
Yeah. Ross Gay, who I'm so, you know, the Book of Delights, which is just like so delightful. Naomi Shihab Nye, really beautiful, really, really beautiful books by her, and Jane Hirschfeld. And so I'm trying really hard to like figure out how to fill my well. Also, because I think a lot of people rely on my personality and like what I put out on the world as a source of inspiration and joy. And if I'm not feeling any joy or inspiration, which is really hard right now to feel, like, how can I transmit that? So I'm like, oh, actually it has to be a priority for me to give myself that. And it's okay. It feels like a luxury. It feels like wrong in this heavy and dark time to do that. But actually I'm like, oh, it's actually kind of my job to do that for myself.
I love that idea of the in-breath and the out-breath. That
Yeah, really beautiful, Rishi.
The quarantine has made it so it's so hard to get more in breath, it's hard to get more inputs that aren't just like on our screens.
Right. Or that aren't depressing or angering or
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Which don't exactly inspire anything beautiful, much less good food.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Yeah, totally. So
so cooking is obviously really different when you're just cooking at home and you're not having a dinner party, or when you need to think about a social distance dinner party where it's like some food that we're going to eat all separately. Like, how are you adapting home cooking to this time? Like, first of all, how do you justify spending time cooking just for yourself? Because I find when that is the case, I just eat cold cuts, right? Or just a block of cheese, and like that's what I'll feed myself. Because it's hard to justify spending 45 minutes on putting calories into my body. Like, that's so silly. It's a waste of my time, right? But it's not, obviously. How do you justify cooking for yourself? And then how do you adapt cooking for like a social distant situation?
do you want to go, Rishi? I mean, I have an answer, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, because I live with my wife. We're able to still have, I think, some kind of semblance of date nights around cooking. One of the guests that we spoke to on our show was author Rachel Kong, and she talked about the idea. We were talking to her about her book Goodbye Vitamin, and one of the ideas she talked about was what happens when you are in kind of like a humdrum routine, and you have no external highlight, then cooking can sort of be a thing that you can use to create that highlight for yourself. She was talking about making this chocolate cake in a mug that's in the book, and just like that little treat, that little special something then becomes the highlight. That becomes the thing that you're looking forward to. And I find that that's how we've been relating to food over here.
Love that.
Yeah, even when it does get a little bit, like it was my turn to make dinner for date night on Sunday, and I made veggie burgers, but then I also had to make dinner for us on Monday, and I thought, well, veggie burgers. I had 2 more in the box, so
date night special.
Yeah. That's so good. Like for me, I live by myself. I have been used to cooking for myself for a long time, so that is not a huge change, I think. But yeah, I definitely have to feed myself, and I think one of the differences maybe is it's a weird thing. The difference, I will say, I think people maybe don't expect to hear this, maybe from like a professional cook or something, but I'm so sick of the taste of my own cooking. Like, I might be a good cook, but I'm so sick of it. Like, what I miss more than anything is even the taste of other people's cooking at their house, even if they're not professional cooks, or just the ability to go get Cambodian food or Thai food or Vietnamese at the drop of a hat. Like, just the taste of food from anywhere else that's not my taste. And so it's just like you realize like what a pleasure it is to have that variety, and what a delight, like what a luxury that was. I will never take that for granted again. Because I'm like, why everything in my house tastes like olive oil and chili flakes, like, like
so good.
like it's just
moving in. I am coming over for olive oil and chili flakes.
But then after 3 months, you'll be like, never again. Like, and so it's, yeah, there is both, like, of course, like we have to feed ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. And like, some days it feels really rote. Some days it does not feel like a luxury. And other days there's just, I'm so excited to use up, like, I'm so excited now. It's like bitter green season is starting, and I get to use the most beautiful bitter greens. And like, it's both really luxurious to me to cook these like wonderful vegetables, and I know it's nutritious, and I'm taking care of myself. And so that feels really nice. In terms of, I live in sort of like a little shared community. So in a way, even though I live by myself, I've also throughout this
like bucolic, like wonderful little. Yeah. I've seen some magazine photo shoot, and it's like,
so throughout this time, we have been having like outdoor sort of potlucks throughout the time, and it is a nice way where like you get to bring a dish, and that is a way to get to taste other people's cooking, and it is nice. And
that's then you so smart.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't, and like to me, I'm like, it also, I think we can all be gentler on ourselves and on other people. I think, you know, one thing I've understood as I've transitioned out of restaurant kitchens and into the home kitchen, and also watched what happens on social media as like food has become this huge thing for people, and like they want to put up the most perfect picture of what they've cooked, is I think somehow the idea of cooking has become like a sport, like a blood sport or something. And really, like cooking a meal can be as simple as like toast and an egg. Like that can be dinner, is toast and an egg. Dinner can be, you know, rice and greens. Dinner, we can downsize what we expect a meal to be, and it can be nutritious and humble and really like to, you know, feed us and nourish us and take care of ourselves. It doesn't have to be a restaurant level meal with garnishes and 62 ingredients. You know, it can be 3 things with a spoonful of chili oil from the fridge, and that can be totally, or it could even come from a box that you like gussy up with some frozen peas. Like, it doesn't have to be the fanciest thing in the world, and that can be enough.
Okay, I think that you are advocating for something that I really like this, and maybe we can make this a thing. It's basically, you know, I think the pressure of this, the competitive nature of it, yeah, is.
Are we going to start a blood sport of cooking?
Well, so that's the competitive nature of the whatever, also, yeah, the blood sport comes from Instagram, I think, largely, right? There's especially when like that's the way we're sharing food.
But guys, home cooking always looks so bad. Like the best.
But so that's what I'm saying.
During lockdown look disgusting. I always take a picture and I always think, I'm finally going to show off. I made meatballs. Like these are, I didn't make them. My partner's sister made meatballs. But you know what I mean? I wanted to show them off because they were so good. The picture it looked like it was like vomit. Like it looked.
That's that's the movement I think we can start right now, which is basically a normcore version of food pictures. Just normcore. Your
like Martha Stewart pioneered that, to be honest.
Totally.
Have you seen Martha Stewart's Insta?
Yeah. Totally. Well, also like in Italian, it's called like brutti ma buoni, like ugly but good. You know, like I wrote a whole column about this last year about like all my food, all the favorite foods I cook and eat are brown. You know, like it's like because it's been browned or roasted or braised, and it has like a sprinkle of parsley on top. It's like not meant to go internet viral. Although the mango pie,
normcore like food pics.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. We should just do it.
Yeah.
Please,
everybody, post your. Please post your mediocre dinners and
tag
hashtag
us.
normcore
tag
home
Rishi.
cooking.
Yeah.
Normcore cooking. That's so good. It is really sad how the best food looks really not good.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know how restaurants do it.
I'm putting it in the chat here.
I was supposed to ask.
Normcore cooking, home cooking.
Are you going to buy that website for us now?
Cooking. Oh yeah.
Yeah, quickly buy that domain.
Buy it now.
Okay, I'm looking at if there's any. I know we have like 1 minute left. Oh, the audience has, so like I imagine I'm not the only one who all of a sudden is like confronting my fridge and like turning on the oven for the first time in her life at 32. Do you find that your audience has changed a lot since lockdown? Like you guys have obviously been public figures for a long time, but like what's it like to get all these newbie cooks coming in and becoming fans of yours or whatever, getting your advice? Like, how's that been?
Well, certainly the people who are listening to the show, you know, many, if not nearly all of them are basically pre-existing fans of Samin's, I think, from what I can tell. And I would say there's the one thing.
Like it's like a
condition, medical condition.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have Samin levitis? If you suffer from Samin levitis, your doctor may prescribe this podcast. I think the one thing that's been most surprising to me, and maybe a little bit, not a little bit, kind of surprising, but in a bit of a disappointing way, as the male co-host on this show, our audience, our audience is largely female, and I certainly don't think the content has to be, but I think it reveals that there is still So I would not have expected that in 2020. I would not have expected that home cooking still ends up falling into such a gendered category that the listeners of even though we have guests from all over the spectrum, and I was surprised by that. So we always try and advocate for for rebalancing how the workload gets distributed in the home, and Samin is obviously a very inspiring, accomplished cook. I'm here. I'm representing the normcore side of things, and also I'm the guy who's fumbling through it. But you can do it too, and you probably should.
Yeah, men need to get in the kitchen. That's
all genders in the kitchen.
All genders in the kitchen. I feel like that's another good hashtag. All genders in the kitchen. Okay, well, so I might get this wrong, but we have questions.
We're going to switch off and then we'll come back.
Now I'm switching to a second panel. So you guys are going to go on mute and turn your video off and do your emails. I'm going to chat with two other people, and then you guys are going to come back and take audience questions that are pre-submitted.
See you in a bit.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Nellie.
Okay. So now, this is my first time doing this. Now I want to introduce our two other guests, both of whom have been finding ways to help people get creative in different ways when it comes to thinking about home. Justina Blakely is a designer and the founder of the decor company Jungalow, and Gretchen Bayless is the co-founder of two companies that help people take home on the road and safely experience the outdoors. Roamerica rents adventure vans for short trips, so like van life, which is a business that's booming. And Axis Vehicle Outfitters sells adventure vans for people who want to go full van life, which I know a lot of people, including myself, are thinking about. So come on to the Zoom, my friends. Oh, you guys are here. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for being game to chat. And I want to talk about similar themes, obviously less food oriented, but I want to talk about, first of all, what your companies are, and then also how you guys are finding creativity, how you're finding inspiration, how you're thinking of new designs in this time, and just staying so productive, because both of you really are. So first of all, Justina, will you give a quick, just tell, for those in the audience who don't know, what is Jungalow? And kind of give us a sense of the aesthetic, because it's fantastic.
Wild.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I started Jungalow about 11 years ago from my living room as a blog and as just a daily kind of way to download my creative adventures and share them with the world. And I'm really into home decor, but I'm also an artist and kind of go into multimedia, and I love plants. And so talking about plants and natural materials and color and pattern and sort of this way to live wildly and vivaciously over the years turned into a brand. And now, now we have our online shop, and I design lots of products across all categories, from wallpaper to rugs and pillows. And really, I feel like my calling is to share my creativity with the world, but also share this ethos that everyone's creative and everyone can create a home and a place in which they can thrive and grow to be their best selves. So that's what I feel like my mission is here on Earth.
Your aesthetic is such a refreshing change from the mid-century modern minimalist white walls, like white it's so exciting to just see it. And yeah. And then Gretchen, so we met because I did a story on the business of van life. And so tell me a little, I know what your companies do, but give the audience a quick sense of what your companies do, and also what you're seeing in terms of demand.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us. So Roamerica is the camper van rental company out of Portland, Oregon, and then Axis Vehicle Outfitters builds and sells these camper vans as well. So you can kind of try before you buy, if you will, test it out. But Justina, we need some prints for our vans.
I got you.
Oh my gosh,
If you guys end up working together because of this Zoom, I will be so happy.
We have to. We've been talking about doing like prints on the ceiling and stuff, and just like inviting the outdoors in and making it super cozy and comfortable, but still like full of adventure, you know? And I just like absolutely adore all your styles. So
thank you. Yeah. All right. I'll hit you up after this.
perfect. But we're seeing a lot of folks that, you know, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's so many people that are just working from home now. Their kids are at home doing digital learning or homeschooling. And so everybody's together all of the time in their own home. And we're just getting a lot of folks calling and emails saying, hey, we're still going to be together at home or on the road, but we just need to get out of our four walls. Like we just need to get out of our house for a few days. Like, when is the next van you have available? So they'll get in a van and then they just have this sense of kind of empowerment, and they can go back to their house and be motivated to get back to work and be, you know, they just had a great adventure. So, you know, everybody's really happy, which is nice.
Yeah, because people are going crazy locked up in the house all day.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you guys are both building creative spaces. And creative sort of home spaces or van home spaces. What are things that you would encourage us to do, or that you do in the creative spaces you build, to make them inspiring, to make them places that you can spend many, many hours in? Because like for me, I found I've never been in my house this long, this much. I usually have more variety of things I look at on the walls. How do you make it not miserable?
I think one of the things that I think as a designer, I always try and kind of express or get people to do more is just experiment with stuff. I think there is a little bit of a paralyzation that happens sometimes where it's like, I can't paint my walls. I can't move my furniture. Like, it seems like a lot. And so I like to say, you know what, it's fine. It's like changing an outfit if it doesn't feel right that morning for you, right? So you can take time to move your furniture around and test out different positions, or paint a wall and change things up. And I think even just doing that for the sake of doing it, not necessarily because you plan on keeping it that way for the next 10 years, but as an artistic expression, as a way to switch things up for you and make things more interesting, is super important. And even little basic things like getting a large plant and putting it in a focal point in your home can really switch up the energy in the space as well. And I think that's another thing we don't talk about a lot, is the energy in the home. But I think one of the most important things to do for your house is make sure that the energy is flowing and circulating through the space. So like in the mornings, I like to open up all the windows and I mean, I live in LA, so I'm a little spoiled, but I want that fresh air to circulate through the house. And I want sunlight in the house. So I clean my windows very often, and I spend time with my blinds all the way open, and, you know, skylights, and just really inviting the outdoors in so many different ways, besides the obvious way, which is by having lots of houseplants.
You're like, or you can just buy like way more houseplants.
Or just go to your nursery and buy 400 houseplants and you're good.
I love the idea of like just rearranging your furniture for the sake of it, or painting a wall for the sake of a change. Like I think I'm always so nervous about doing that because I have a very bad aesthetic. Like I know I'm not talented at these things. And so I've been.
I hate it when people say that. No, it's just, it's like everything. You know, I have an 8-year-old, so we've just grown it. We're saying, you know, Ida, no one is born good at something. You have to practice it. You have to practice it. And you're never going to get good at picking paint colors if you don't try and pick paint colors, right? So you got to try it, and you dig in a little, and you get better and better at it.
Or I'll just surprise my partner with new painted walls.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
Going green today. I think it's so smart. Gretchen, what do you do? I mean, you're building these vans where you're talking about a family of 4 who's potentially in a van for God knows how many hours. How do you make it aesthetically creative for them, or sort of not drive them crazy in that space?
Yeah, so we provide like options for customers to pick like their finishes. They get to pick the flooring color and the ceiling, and and then we have these really fun things where you can pick your prints. And we always say, like, after you pick up your van or as we're building your van, think about the throw pillows that you're going to have in there, and the blankets, and you have to make it yours because you're going to be spending a lot of time in this van, we hope, and that's the goal, right? But for us personally as a family, well, let me let me back up. I kill all plants. Like, it's awful. That's fake. Like, I can't keep a plant alive. And so,
oh my God.
Okay, we'll talk offline again about this. When we talk about prints, we'll talk about plants.
Oh, it's just awful. And so I have to get all of my like good energy and my outdoors literally in the outdoors, because as soon as I invite it into my home, it's just like gets so sad all of a sudden. So I get all of my creativity from just being outside. And same with our customers. We get a lot of folks that have never even been in a van before or camped even. And so we always just say, like, go camping. Like, number one, see if you even like to be outdoors. It's not for everybody. And luckily most folks coming back
with the van being like, there's
no,
the world doesn't have air conditioning. Like, what?
Luckily, we can answer most of those questions ahead of time and lay those fears down to rest. But be outside, and for us, our landscape changes a lot. So as a family, we're typically only camping like one night somewhere, maybe 2 nights if it's like extra special. But I mean, the ocean, think about the ocean, has so much energy, especially the Oregon coast. There's tons of waterfalls here in the Pacific Northwest. And then if you're needing something a little bit more mellow, maybe go out to the desert. If you just need something to just clear your space, have it be super quiet, there's a lot of different landscapes and climates here in Oregon alone, let alone the Pacific Northwest. And so just like Rishi was saying, just absorb instead of trying to keep putting out. It's like whenever we hit a roadblock with either business or design challenges with vans or even trip planning for customers, it's like we just take a big time out. And we go camping, or we go for a hike, or we take the kids out or the dogs. And all of a sudden, it's just the ideas start flowing and the solutions just kind of present themselves. It's a very nice thing that Mother Nature does for us.
Here.
Justina, I'm getting in the comments on this, I'm getting a lot of very specific questions for you, such as like, I know people have like really like, how do you keep indoor plants alive? And like, another one is, given the wildfires, we can't open any windows. What paint companies or lines would you recommend for non-toxic paints for Jungalow level color palette vibrance?
Ooh, Jungalow.
I know. No, you're getting very smart, specific questions. It's awesome. Okay, wait, tell me about the paint colors with the non-toxic, because I'm actually very worried about this with the air quality, because I'm in LA right now too.
Totally.
And I'm constantly stressed about, I'm watching my air now. And so if you're painting, or I don't know, do you have tips on that? That maybe is a silly question or too specific.
It's not silly. I think now most paint companies, most of the bigger paint companies do have non-toxic. I mean, they're obviously pretty much all non-toxic at this point, but there are special lines that are like, they'll recommend for a nursery, for example, where it's got really low fumes, et cetera, et cetera. So, but most paint lines do have that now. So you just have to like look for the sort of the most eco-friendly one or whatever. Yeah. There's a local Los Angeles paint company that I really love that's called Portola Paints. And they have a lot of specialty finishes, a lot of like lime washes, which give a really beautiful like matte finish. It feels a little bit like Morocco or certain areas of Mexico where there's a lot of like kind of texture in the palette as well. Really beautiful color lines. I'm a big fan of Portola Paints. But I'm really a little bit promiscuous when it comes to paint companies. I like colors from lots of different places, and I just open everything up whenever I paint, and I paint really frequently, especially in my studio. And so, about twice a week. So we'll turn the fans on and vent, same thing that we should actually be doing for COVID airflow stuff is just opening everything up, turning those fans on, and keeping that airflow. going. And then, you know, it's funny with the keeping plants alive thing, because I get these questions so often. And there's no, like, there are two plants that I feel like I can totally throw all my weight behind to say, if you are a beginner and you feel like Gretchen just said, I can't keep plants alive, I kill anything that comes my way. There are two plants I recommend over and over again. One, and I actually have one in here. It's got many names. My favorite is the mother-in-law's tongue. I'm gonna pan my screen so you can see. See, it's in the corner there, right there.
That's
so it's got these spears, right? And it's called a mother-in-law's tongue, which is such a witchy and cool name.
I love that.
And it's also
I've killed two of them.
You killed Gretchen.
Okay, you're doing it on purpose then.
Bad. No, we moved. I'll blame it on moving.
You moved.
Bad.
Okay. Because
Someone just wrote in the comments, I've killed Mint.
Mint is not easy. Mint, you have to water. I mean, herbs you have to water every day. Herbs need a lot of
People
water.
are really bonding over all the plants they killed. I killed the snake plant. I did too.
You
Okay,
guys,
also-
it's so hard to kill a snake plant. It really
Okay,
is.
so what's the other one? So it's the mother-in-law's tongue, and
Mother-in-law's
then
tongue, which is also called the snake plant or a sansevieria. So that's that variety, and there's different kinds. There's like variegated ones that are very colorful. There's some more that are like have a cylindrical kind of spear as opposed to the flat spear like that one. The other one is a ZZ plant, and usually it's written Z-E-E-Z-E-E, but
Okay.
it's short for like Zumuculosis zamucamama, something long and that I don't remember. But they are really easy to care for. I would say on par with the mother-in-law's tongue. And one kind of good trick I like to use when I'm plant shopping, when it comes to finding plants that are easier to care for, is plants that store water in their leaves tend to be a bit waxy or a bit fleshy. So oftentimes if a plant looks really delicate and like a maidenhair fern, and you know, it's got this, it's hard to take care of. It's like, it looks delicate, it is delicate. But the ones that like look a little hardier and feel a little waxier, like those are usually a little more hardcore. But it's so personal, you know, it's so personal to what the light is like in your home, really it has a lot to do with light. And then it also has to do with, and this is something we've been working on a lot in my design business, is about the drainage. And I think this is where most people go wrong. So many decorative pots for indoor plants don't have drainage. So the water sits in the roots and the roots rot. And plant health is all about root health. It's all about keeping the roots healthy, the foundation. That's where all the magic happens, is in the roots. So if your roots are sitting in water, your plant will die. And you might not really notice it because you might be thinking you're watering it good, you know, I'm taking care of it, I'm watering it. But if it's sitting in its water,
it's rotted out.
It's gonna rot. And a lot of people overwater as well. So making sure you've got good drainage and making sure the lighting conditions match with kind of where you have the plant in your home, is really important. And ZZ plants and mother-in-law's tongues, they can thrive in low light situations. So they can be like on the other side of the room from the window and still be like living their best life.
Gretchen, we've got a lot of questions about how much demand has grown since the pandemic started. What kind of wait lists are we looking at for getting in your van for van lifing?
So rentals you can get in next week or in a couple weeks. So if you want to try a van and just scoot around the Pacific Northwest for a few days, like by all means, just give us a call. We have vans. To build a van next summer, most likely. So
like 9 months.
I mean, I mean, we're definitely going to be trying to increase productivity here pretty soon, like within the next month, just to kind of speed up that the builds. But you know, we spend a lot of time on these builds making sure they can handle the type of travel we do, which is a ton of dirt, gravel, rocky roads and 4-wheel drive conditions, and it's year round. And so there's a lot of attention and time that goes into these, and it's not just kind of these it's not a prefab sort of situation, you know.
Demand
the layouts
versus demand right now.
What's that?
If you had to compare demand from last year versus demand right now.
Well, it's high because Axis Vehicle Outfitters is new. What? So we started Axis in January, and then COVID hit, and we were like, oh no, why did we start another business? But it turned out great, and van travel is huge, which we always, I mean, of course, personally, we always thought it was amazing. But it just makes a lot more sense now for families, especially working from home and with kids online and just needing some adventure, and it just kind of makes people just rethink like how they want to live and what they want to do on their weekends.
So I want to talk to you guys for like another hour and get more advice. And I'm loving watching the reader questions on the side, but actually we have to welcome back our other guests and then take audience questions. Some people have pre-recorded. So I want to welcome back Samin and Rishi. So pop up your little squares and, oh my God, you guys did it right on time. That was amazing. I feel like a magician. And then now we have some audience questions that are pre-recorded. And I think those are supposed to play.
Hey, I'm Ariana in Stockholm, Sweden, and I would love to hear your best advice for another maker and creator who maybe want to adjust to a new pandemic reality without losing the core of what they love to do and want to make. Thanks so much. Tack så mycket.
So whoever wants to take that, I mean, just, and you guys talk to each other like it's.
All of us are too scared to talk over one another. For me, it's just always going back to the core and why we started our businesses. Whenever we feel like we might be losing our passion or losing our sense of truth or just losing our way or just not feeling as motivated, we just take a big pause and we say, let's just take a time out and go camping, because that's where it all started. So however you got into weaving and starting your business, it's just go back there. And it might be as simple as just, one night, maybe looking back at old pictures or talking to some friends that were with you, a part of your life when you first started your business, or your mom or your dad, some family members who really went through like that startup phase with you. Sometimes it's really fun to look back on like, oh yeah, that's why I started, and whoa, I've come a long way.
Such good advice.
I think one of the reasons why doing home cooking has been such a valuable experience for me is because I get to talk to Samin as part of it. And for me, being able to connect with somebody is really, really important, especially being stuck in the house. I'm an extrovert and I really, really need that connection with people. And, luckily I'm also somebody who likes talking on the phone. And now we have Zoom and FaceTime, and Zooms are their own kind of nightmare. But when it's a one-on-one conversation with a good friend, I find that really helps center me and just get me excited to, once we hang up, to go get back to work.
I just go outside, and I think that's one of those things that every time I do it and I just stop what I'm doing and I'm overwhelmed and I even just like walk around my block or do something very simple like that, it really recharges me. And I might go out with a little bit of a goal. Sometimes I think doing focused walks helps me think about things in new ways. So I have a few different little activities that I sometimes do. One is, I call it rainbow foraging, and I'll go outside and I will either look for physical objects like leaves or flowers or petals or sticks that are in all the colors of the rainbow, and kind of bring a little baggie with me and take them back home. Or I'll just do it in photos as well. So finding something that's red, finding something that's orange, or just doing these kinds of going outside and doing something completely random and weird like that.
Rainbow foraging is such a genius idea. I love that.
Girl, stop it.
It's like you created your own scavenger hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm all about these kinds of like treasure hunts and going outside and trying to notice different things. With my daughter, we'll do it sometimes finding like letters and trying to spell something out or just whatever. But what it does is it makes you really like notice all the little things around you. So even on my block, like, oh, here's a cool tree that I've never noticed before. And the eucalyptus bark, the way it's flaking off is really interesting. And it's creating this really cool pattern and all these neat colors. And so it can literally just be down my own block. And I live really close to the LA River. So I go down there all the time and just watch the water, and just connecting with nature, I think, brings me back to that place of like, there is so much out here, and I can just get so in my head and so stuck when I'm home and in front of my computer or my phone, and it's like an echo chamber. And so just getting outside is like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm somewhere between everyone. Like I definitely feel like my work is about people, and I'm very motivated and inspired by both like trying to connect with people and making something for people. And, you know, the work that for me is often the most fulfilling has a collaborative element to it, like our podcast or my book that I got to make with the wonderful artist Wendy McNaughton, who became a really good friend. And that collaboration was really like incredibly soul fulfilling for me. So I think finding things to work on with people and people who are going to bring a lot of joy into my life is a big part of it. But also I think I need to like do stuff that's with my hands and create parts of the process that are relieving pressure from the delivery, you know, from where what's the part where I have to turn something in. And that I'm not always that good at, because like by nature, I'm an immigrant kid. I'm a cook. Cooks are all about the product that they're going to like turn in, you know, or create or turn. And so that takes a lot of therapy and just like trying to meditate and be present and do my best to be nice to myself. So it's really hard, and it's hard to not be focused on a product when your well-being and your pocketbook and your rent depend on it. So it's a really complicated time, and I have a lot of compassion for makers right now, because I think like I speak from a place of incredible privilege where I get to dawdle around, you know, and I want to acknowledge that, but that is part of my process.
Let's go to the next question.
Hi, I'm Jihan in Los Angeles. I'd like to ask each of you if you have any kind of practice or ritual that you use to reset after, say, a bad quarantine pandemic day, or just being overwhelmed by the news. If you have anything that you could share, I'd love to hear it. Thanks.
It's a great question. A bad pandemic quarantine day.
Oh, so bad. So bad.
I think we've covered some of those, but are there others that you guys do?
For me, water is very cleansing. It's kind of a basic thing, but I have an outdoor shower and a jacuzzi and a bathtub and a regular shower. And so
okay, you're cheating at this.
I am cheating a little bit, but you can cheat too. I think, you know, even just from a simple shower, which sounds silly, but there are so many ways to make that experience feel more luxurious. Like this is like a eucalyptus moment for me, but put some eucalyptus leaves in your shower and like create a spa vibe for yourself. Like really like leaning into that kind of self-care, I think for me really works. You know, using essential oil, like even if you don't have like a jacuzzi or an outdoor shower, there are still so many ways to make a bath or a shower feel like a kind of a spa experience and giving yourself a little bit of luxury. And I definitely feel refreshed and renewed and more relaxed after even a 15-minute shower with some essential oils.
I totally agree on the shower thing. I do what I call a reset shower, where like after I file something or whatever, then I just take a shower. I don't know why. And so that's
a good thing.
Rishi does not look convinced by the eucalyptus idea. Somebody wrote that.
Are you side-eyeing me? I'm just in a different place on the screen.
I will put the eucalyptus in your shower.
Look, I have no room for more essential oils. Basically, my whole home is just full of essential oils.
Shower plus essential
right now, by the way, are just wine. It's just wine. Very good reset ideas, guys.
And
Very
so-
good on wine.
I mean, I definitely, I will take a cue from like what Justina said. I do think that like retreating into the senses is a good way. Like usually for me, when I'm overwhelmed, it's because I've gone into my head, and like, and I'm like, I was talking to my friend earlier today, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I've been doing this thing all week where it's like." She even did it with sound effects. She was like, I've been doing the Twitter slot machine where she's like, I just reload Twitter and it's like I'm getting that like hit of like you're like what
like a slot machine that you only lose.
yeah. So and she's like, I'm such a bad mom. I keep telling my children like go to the other room. Mom needs to reload Twitter. Like, and so like it's like you're poisoning yourself with this like bad news or whatever, and you can't stop. And so like, or for me, a lot of times those bad days aren't even so much pandemic, or it's like the pandemic plus a deadline or whatever. So it's like I've been in my head so much that I have to force myself out of my head. So however I can do that, if it's like going outside, although lately in California, like going outside is now a luxury too. And so if I can figure out some way with my senses, whether that's like an essential oil or music, right? Listening to something that's going to make me feel good, or smelling or tasting, but like it's like getting into some other part of my body that's not my head is very helpful. If I can go outside, like something, I will leave my phone inside and just go dig weeds out of the garden for 15 minutes. And I'm like I'm a totally different person. I come in and I'm like covered in dirt, and I'm like did something, and I get all my aggression out on the weeds. It feels amazing.
The weeds up.
I like to play with our kids like on their level. So we have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So their play, our 3-year-old asked me yesterday, she's like, can we make pizza, Mama? So we got out like our 27 different colors of Play-Doh and make, 30 pizza rounds and put them in the oven on the table with pepperoni and shredded cheese and some lettuce. And then she got fancy with, yeah, totally cooking with, she asked for googly eyes and pink sprinkles. And so we got in it.
You're getting fancy in this pizza.
I know. And it takes brain power to be like, okay, let's switch on my 3-year-old brain here. And it's so fun. And you're not thinking about work or deadlines or any of that, because you are like 100% present. And it's fun. Like I love playing with our kids. And so that's always how I reset, is like, whatever's happening out there, like, is not affecting these children right now. And these kids are having a blast, and I'm going to join them because they're having an ice skating party in the kitchen right now. And that looks like a lot of fun. So I'm going to put on my socks and go ice skating.
Time for just our last question, if we do have time. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I live in New York City. And my question is, have you made any discoveries that you're excited about yourself or your practice that you look forward to taking forward into the future? Thanks.
Great question.
Yeah, it's a fun question.
Well, I think that one thing I had long suspected is that for me to be happy, I need new information. I need like new projects. I need new ways of being, and that really was cemented because of this time where the rut and the routine of everything has been so prominent. It's not the best way to learn that lesson, but I got to learn it. It really it went from a suspicion to something I understood was absolutely true. And I'm looking forward to when that's going to be easier. But in the meantime, part of starting home cooking with Samin was a response to just making sure that we have a new project to do. And I think that's been really fun for me, just being able to daydream within these circumstances. And then when things are more freeing, being able to do that even more so.
It's also why we were supposed to only do 4. And then when that ended, we were like, we miss each other. Let's just make more. Like we keep doing it because it's been a great, it's like as much as it's a source of solace, I think for other people, it also is for us.
Yeah, I get to learn new things every time we get
and I get to make fun of you every time. So it's good. Yeah.
Right.
I like to just learn new things. Like I'm not hands-on when it comes to building the vans. I'm not cutting or sawing or doing any of that. And I'm trying to learn the process, which has been really interesting. And so helping the guys get like the wall panels down, climbing up ladders and lifting that, and then like deconstructing a cargo van before the guys take over. Like these are things that I'm learning how to do. And I'm realizing that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was, which has been really fun.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, like mentally and physically, like it's been a pretty empowering, probably I wouldn't say a year of empowerment in general, but like the last few months have been pretty good. But struggling with health issues my whole life, like having the physical ability to get my hands dirty with a team of guys building vans and like helping customers with like, lifting their suitcases and their groceries and stuff like that. Just like the physical demanding part of the outdoors has always been a challenge. And that's something that I've learned out of myself this year is if I allow myself to not let my mental like image of myself take over, I'm a lot stronger than I think I am, which has been really fun. And then I've been able to transfer that empowerment over to like other moms or solo travelers or somebody with a disability. And it's like, just let the outdoors kind of recharge you and things will kind of come into place for you. It's been really fun.
I think for me, it's been interesting because, as someone who is creative for their job and does creative stuff for a hobby and runs their own business, it's so easy for home life and work life to become this blurry blob of a situation. And the pandemic has just exacerbated that. And so I've really had to be really good about creating boundaries around engagement with tech and how often am I going to allow myself to scroll on Instagram and for how long, or answer DMs, or whatever that situation is, and get really good about boundaries also for sort of a sacred creative time that isn't necessarily tied to work, where it's not just like, oh, I'm designing furniture or designing wallpaper. I love doing that, but I think it's also really important to allow myself just to explore whatever creative inclinations I have in that moment without putting boundaries around it because I need it for a deadline. And so really, I think a discovery for me is by carving out creative time that's not work facing, really allows me to discover new things about myself as an artist. And whether I'm picking up a guitar and playing music, or in the kitchen, or painting, or whatever it is, I think it's really important to have a creative practice that is also disassociated from a deadline or a money-facing kind of project.
You guys, I can't believe it, but I think we're out of time. And I think we can't take more questions, although I want to go through all the comments because it's been really fun to read them. I hope you can see them too. This has been such a pleasure and the most social I've been in days. And also I think I've learned a lot, and I hope people watching have learned a lot, because I think we all need a lot of ideas for how to inspire ourselves right now. So I'll do a formal outro. I want to thank Samin, Rishi, Justina, and Gretchen for joining us, and for all of you listening and asking questions. Also, for those who haven't already, tune in to Song Exploder on Netflix, which is Rishi's show. And you can find more digital events like these at events.nytimes.com. And thanks for joining us, and take care, everyone.
Thank you, Nellie.
Thanks so much
Thank you
for
so
having
much,
us.
Nellie.